Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going through my grades for every VCT Pacific team's offseason. I'm just going to be telling you what I thought of the changes that they made. These are not power rankings. These are not how good I think these teams will be. These are just how good I thought they upgraded, or how much I thought they upgraded their team or started building in a better direction than they had last year. Um, if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps me out. I have two more videos like this for Americas and EMEA. You should go watch those after this one. Um, and yeah, let's get right into it. So we're gonna start here with DRX, who I'm gonna give a B minus. I do think this is gonna be a little bit high for most people, but I do think this team just needed some sort of change. Um, Whether it be taking, I mean, like if they were gonna remove two players, I think Zest and RB would be the two. That being said, Zest and RB are incredible players and should immediately get picked up by any team, even before the season starts here, if they're like even making last minute changes. Um, I just think maybe you could have kept Zest instead of Buzz, or RB instead of Buzz, one of the two. And then put Foxy on the duelist, but he hasn't shown to have any sort of awareness on that role. I think he's looked better on Flex. Um, but like I think this is the best way of going about things. Um, they'll probably be worse this year, which is why they're not getting a smack dab in the middle grade of a B. Um, but it does give themselves something to build off of and continue to maybe change and become a different roster. I know Termy's still there, so they probably won't. But also, having a worse result might lead to them firing Termy anyway. So I think that's a plus either way. Um, so yeah, I just I see that there is potential with this team that maybe some people aren't acknowledging. Like Flashback does have very good mechanics, is a great player, and if he can continue to build upon the performances that he put up in the offseason, I think he'll turn out to be a fairly good player. Um, Same thing with Foxy 9. I think his flex play has looked pretty good, specifically the KO. He might just literally be a mini tens, which kind of isn't ideal, but is still fine here. And yeah, overall, I am higher on this DRX offseason than most people, but it was really weird in terms of the timing of them removing Zest and RB. I didn't like that. I'll say that. All right, and then PaperRex, we're gonna give a B. Now, personally, I really like Monye as a player. I think he is incredible, one of the best smokes players in Pacific. Um, but I also think Mind Freak is one of those players. And I feel like putting Monye on the duelist, like the role that Jing was playing, instead of just putting him on smokes and moving Mind Freak to something else, seems like it's not making the most of this roster. Um, I and then like Mind Freak's initiator play hasn't looked good. I would hope it gets better throughout this offseason. Like I would hope that's like one of the first times he was playing it, just because it did not look good. Um, but I think the rest of the team here is very solid. Forsaken, Something, and Devi, very good three. Meunier or Mind Freak on the controller. And then as I've written here, I wouldn't be shocked if they make a midseason change, probably getting rid of Mind Freak here and bringing in a Jing-esque player to kind of fill that void and just continue to play like they did last year. But I think this team will look different and will have a slow start again, no matter what, even if they keep the same roster. They just got to figure some stuff out. I do trust that this team will figure some stuff out, as you'll see in my power rankings. But overall, I'm not as big on the roster itself here. I just don't think the roles are going to work. I think I'd put it over a 50% chance that they make a change midseason. But we'll just have to see. All right, and now on to another team that had a very weird offseason, T1. Um, they are keeping Saya and Carpe here, and then bringing in Rossi, Izu, and Excurate. Um, and I was actually really high up on the roster that they were originally rumored to have, which was Saya, Zeta. I'm trying to remember it now. Saya, Zeta, King, Izu, and who was the other one? Excurate was the fifth. But then they brought in Rossi and have mixed in Carpe a little bit here, and it's just gotten really weird. Um, like it looks okay on paper. I think they probably overperformed a little bit at what was it? The 10 not the 10 invitational, the other one. The Africa TV tournament. And by they I specifically mean Rossi, who was always just kind of like a mid player in NA. Wasn't really somebody who like was incredible or anything. Obviously he could have taken a step up here and could just be a really good player for them, and I would accept that. But Saya, I just don't think is a duelist that you're going to win a championship with. He's too greedy. He makes some wacky plays sometimes that I just don't like. The Carpe IGL looked okay. And I'm not like against it, but I don't think it's going to look a lot better than it did at that invitational. Obviously, I could be wrong, but again, I just don't have a ton of faith in that. Even though I did think they should have kept him into this next roster, even with the Zeta and what's it called, and Excurate. Like I would have liked to see their roster be Saya, Carpe, Zeta, Izu on Smokes, and then King on Sentinel. That would have been my ideal roster for this team. But I think language barriers kind of got in the way there, among other things, which kind of sucks, but whatever. Um, but Izu was one of my favorite pickups of the offseason. We're going to go through a lot of those in this video. I I mean, maybe not favorite is in like he's like one of the best pickups of the offseason. He's an insane player. Like he is very, very good. Um, but I thought it was really fun when I watched him. He was playing duelist in, I believe, Japanese challengers. I don't remember what team. But my first like thing that I noticed is this guy's not a duelist player. Like his opping is not there. He is aggressive and is a decent entry player, but like it's just not good. So I'm like, this guy needs to play flex or play something else, and that's what he's been playing here, and he's looked very, very solid. Obviously, in the Africa tournament, he didn't look as good, but in the 10 Invitational, he was incredible. Um, so I like him. From what I've seen from Exeter, I really, really like some of the like. There were some things on when he played Chamber on Lotus that I didn't like, but I chalk that up to inexperience that will get better. And overall, I think this roster will be very good. They'll probably be the best Korean team. Um, but yeah, still, I have some reservations on this team going deep in tournaments. And next up here, we have Zeta Division, who I'm going to give an A. Um, they kept the big three here, which was Depp, Sugar Zero, and Laz, as you'd expect and as you hoped. Laz is going to stay the IGL, which I do believe in. Um, it hasn't looked great, but it has continued to look better and better overall, like throughout the time that he has been IGLing, which is a good thing. And you'd hope it continues to get better. Hiroron, who they picked up, was probably my favorite player I watched, not just in Japanese tier 2, but possibly all of tier 2. Yeah, he was just so good on specifically on Sentinel that he was playing in tier 2. I thought was really good. And I was kind of disappointed when I saw him on Sky in that first game in Red Bull. But with how he played, like when I saw it in Agent Select, but once he started playing, I'm like, all right, this guy's legit. Um, he's going to be their flex player here, and I mean, he's looked nothing but incredible so far. Just as I've expected. And it still allows Laz to stay on the Sentinel, so I'm perfectly fine with it. Uh, Urine, I still don't know too much about, even though I watched all the Red Bull games. I just didn't notice him too much. I didn't really think he was doing anything incredible. I didn't think he was doing anything terrible, which is just a good player to have. I mean, as I said, the other three here are very, very good. Depp is one of the like above average duelist in Pacific, um, which is actually a very good thing. There's a lot of good duelists here. Sugar Zero is one of my favorite smokes players to watch. Watching him play Harbor on Haven was so much fun. He was doing some very fun stuff with the walls. And overall, I think this team has potential to win Pacific. Um, and that's why they're going to get an A here from me. All right. And now on to Team Secret, who I'm going to give a B minus. Um, I'm not super familiar with Filipino talent, so I can't say that there were significantly better players than NDG. But NDG seemed like an okay smokes player, like maybe like mid to good. Like he's not bad, but he's not like an incredible player either. Um, he's probably gonna end up playing off role here, either the duelist or on Sentinel. I think he's gonna end up playing Sentinel, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, just because like when I first saw the move, I'm like, okay, well he's probably gonna be the duelist player, right? Jeremy's gonna play Sentinel, and they're just gonna get a crack duelist player in here, and then it'll be all good. But they didn't do that, and honestly, at that point, if he's just gonna be a smokes, I mean, he also played initiator too. If he's gonna be like a smoke slash initiator player, why not just have him replace Borkum and keep the Jeremy dubstep swap that you had going? Like, um, EG did that all of last year. It's not like it's gonna like hurt you too much, because they understand that. I mean, EG like had the understanding that you can swap between the two. Obviously, it's not ideal, but if you have to, you can. Um, and if you have an incredible raise player and an incredible jet player, you should do it. And they were doing it, and Team Secret, it was working for them. So I don't know why that they're going to go back on that now. Um, yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. Obviously, NDG could just be better than I see, um, but also from what I heard, there were some cracked duelist players out of the Philippines, and I feel like just picking one of those guys up and putting Jeremy on Sentinel would have been a lot better. What they did here, uh, but I gave them a B minus just because I don't exactly know. I didn't really watch those players, so yeah, B minus for Team Secrets. All right, and now we have Gen G. I'm gonna give a B here. I'm not exactly sure how good this team will be. I think they'll be okay. Um, Originally, I thought they were going to be very bad. Assuming Meteor was on Duelist and Texture was on Flex, and they moved the other things around, I would assume Munchkin would have been on Sentinel at that point. But now seeing the roles like this, I think this team could be very competitive. The Texture signing now is going to be one of my favorite signings of the offseason, just purely because of I mean, his duelist play specifically. I think he's an incredible jet player and a very solid race player, and that'll get you very, very far as a duelist player. Yeah, I just think he is maybe, I don't know. He's like a top 7 duelist in Pacific. I was gonna try to compare him to somebody else, but I couldn't think of somebody in the convergence tournament. His opping was a little subpar, but to be fair, he hasn't played duelist since like before franchising, so like I'll give him a bit of a pass on that. I think his opping will get better. Um, I just I have so much faith in him. Uh, but to talk about the other players on this team, Karen looks like a good find. Obviously, nobody knew who this guy was previous to this tournament, um, but he looked very, very good at the convergence as well. And then Locky and Munchkin are two players that give you a good floor here, that they won't be terrible players, but they'll be very, very solid for you. Specifically Lakia, I don't think Lakia is going to have too many awful games. Munchkin, I think, can give you some bad games, but overall, you know what you're getting with him, which is kind of what I meant by giving a good floor. The only player I'm worried about here is Meteor, who is going to be playing Sentinel, and I'm not massive on that. Um, Obviously, he can continue to get better. He has very good mechanics. I think there's a good chance that he'll be fine. But again, with him specifically, we just don't know, and that's kind of the tipping point with this team. If he is incredible, then this team will be up there for some of the best teams in Pacific. And yeah, I think he'll be very, very good. And now onto another team's offseason that I liked, RRQ. Jemkin was another favorite signing of mine, along with Texture and who was the other guy? Hiruron. I've talked about in like two of the last three of these. He's just a really good duelist player. I do worry a little bit about like certain aspects of his game, like his opping. I don't think is amazing, but I think can get there in time. I think he'll be fine with that. He does feel a little bit like a mini something. I don't think he'll ever be something, but I think he'll be a very, very good duelist player here. Australia is a solid initiator player. Won't win you games outright, but won't lose you games either. Kind of like what I talked about with Blockia, where he'll just be very solid for this team. Rest of the roster is fairly stable in Flipshooter, Zephyro, and Elmamore, and just gives a great amount of structure to this team that they had last year. You can kind of continue to build off of what they did last year. And I don't know, I just believe in the vision of this roster. I think, again, if there's players that underperform this year, they can replace them and then continue to do that until they get one of the best rosters in the world. Kind of like what Fnatic did, pretty much, except Fnatic was good the entire time, which is not normal. But yeah, I just think that is the way that you build a roster, and that's seemingly what they're doing here. I really, really, really believe in that. It does kind of suck that they lose EJ here, but I think there were just better options at Duelist, so I think that's fine. I did really like him. I hope he gets picked up by somebody else. All right, and now on to Global. I'm going to give a D minus. This just wasn't a team that needed to remove every player. They had some pretty good pieces in Meunier and Texture. I didn't hate Bazzi either, but overall, like Aaron retired, so I don't know what they could do about that. He might have just retired because they cut him though, so I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna work. But bringing in Polvi, Russ, Blaze King, and bringing in Lightning Fast from the reserve roster, and then Ben Kai. Blaze King was one of my favorite players to watch in Tier 2, but I just don't believe he's on the correct role here. I thought he was so good on Sentinel. In Tier 2 for, I think it was Boom. He was just farming some of these teams. He just had such good like Sentinel instincts, I think is the right word there. But putting him on the initiator here, which he has played in the past apparently, I don't hate it. Like I didn't hate watching it, but it wasn't good either, comparatively to a Sentinel at least. And overall, I just don't think that's the right move. I think you could have just honestly put Ben Kai on the initiator here and left Blaze King on Sentinel, and this would be a better roster that I would believe in a little bit more. But yeah, Russ, I think everybody was kind of shitting on him, expecting him to be awful here. I don't think it was as bad as expected, but could just be like a one-off tournament kind of thing where he plays really well and then goes back to being bad as an individual. The calling didn't look terrible either, but it wasn't good. I'd assume it would get better bringing in Bankai here because he wasn't playing in that tournament, but still not great. And then Polvi, Benkai, and Lightning Fast are all solid individual players, but I just don't think they're good enough to push this roster over the top and make them at all good. And I don't think this team will have too much to build off next year other than maybe Blaze King. And that's kind of an issue. Maybe Benkai as well. I don't know. We'll just have to see. I just really don't believe in the direction of this global roster. And then next up here is Talon, who I'm going to give a B plus. This is a perfect example of what I meant by these are not power rankings and these are off-season grades. This is a team that I don't think will be that good, but they had a very, very good offseason, in my opinion. Governor is a player that I very much believe in. He's the exact kind of duelist you'd want to kind of build up and bring in to become a great duelist player that maybe not isn't one right now. His mechanics are incredible. His opping is very good as well. He can play both Raze and Jet to a very high level, as well as Neon. He's even IGL'd on teams in the past. It did not look good, but that just means he is a vocal enough player and can like calm and shit. I'm assuming. And I just think that's all lead to a very good duelist player that can become one of the best duelist players in Pacific here. Ban, who's going to be playing flex for them, is a player that I've been high on going back to his Knights days, playing duelist there. But he's going to be playing the flex here where he can kind of sometimes play the Jet if they need it, which is a very good thing for him. But overall, he's going to be playing like a lot of like Sky, Viper, Breach, that kind of stuff, which I think he could be better at than the Smokes, even though I didn't hate his Smokes play either. Just a player that I think will be better than some people expect. Lenny and Jit Boys are both solid players. I expect one of them, if not both of them, to probably get replaced after this season, though, as I'll talk about in a little bit. Just because I don't think they're super good, but they'll be solid enough for this team to make it through this season. Kind of like Band-Aid players kind of thing. Cruz gets back on the role that he was best on at the beginning of the season. He's going to be IGLing as well. I think at the beginning of the season last year when he was playing Smokes was the best this guy's ever looked. So getting him back on that role is very good for him. And just a roster like this allows you to keep building into next year, maybe replace some of the players if the team is bad. And I think this team has a lot of potential for next year, even if they're not good this year. And now onto the infamous DFM, who I'm going to give a C here, which might be higher than some people would. But I think this team needed a complete overhaul, which gives a buff for me, in my opinion. I like some of the pieces on this roster. May is a crack duelist player, even though I do have him ranked pretty low in my duelist rankings. I do think he will be very good for this team. Jojo is a great IGL, in my opinion, probably the best one out of Japan, outside of Laz. Still not a great IGL, but one that can give you a lot here. But I still think this team lacks like a star player. And honestly, just this is another team that I think can continue building into next year, despite this roster just being very bad. I still think they need to make changes down the line. Like Papagachi is okay. I think he looked decent in the games that I watched. Nothing crazy, but good. Neth is a solid Smokes player at best. I don't think he's great. And Suggest has decent mechanics on the Sentinel. I think he can continue to build on that role. Maybe stay into next year if they keep May, Jojo, Suggest, and replace the other two roles. I think that would be a successful year for this team, in my opinion. And then lastly here, we have Bleed, a team that I didn't really understand how to grade. They were forced to replace Juicy and Neff on their team that won Ascension. But they brought in Ye and Egoist, who I do think are two very good replacements for those two players. Just the only issue is I would have liked to see them maybe bring in a different kind of duelist player. Then Yay, somebody more similar to Juicy. So then when Juicy wants to come back in, he can, or not maybe when he wants to, when he is able to come back in, he can. I don't fully agree with the bullet that I wrote there now that I think about it. Just because like they couldn't have kept them, so it doesn't really matter. Um, and also these moves are like a very high ceiling but low floor. So if they work out, then you might not want to bring back the players that you had before. But if they don't work out, then you'll be very bad. I just don't really know here. Um, and yeah, overall, I think this team could be very good, and they're spending a lot of money. But overall, I'm not exactly sure if I fully believe in them. But with that, that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really appreciate that. Really helps me out. Um, Go watch the other two videos if you enjoyed the Americas and the EMEA ones. But after this video, I will be coming out with my power rankings, starting with Americas. Then I'll probably go to EMEA and Pacific. After that, just do it in the same order as these, might as well. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.